Hi everyone, and welcome to this short tutorial on how to write your How Might We statement for your Google Innovator project. My name is Les Macbeth, and I'll be your design thinking coach at the Innovator Academy. And I'm here to set you up today to think about how do you take all of that great work that you've done in terms of interviewing your users and finding out what their needs are, and turn that into something that can launch our ideation when we come together at the Academy. So we use the phrase how might we very specifically. We don't say how can we or how do we or how should we, which sort of all imply that there's either a right way or a wrong way, or there is only one way to solve a problem. But rather, how might we sort of launches into all of the possibilities that could come out of a challenge. And so we're going to have you phrase your challenge as a how might we statement that really will come from your point of view statement and launch that ideation. So what we really want to do here is frame a problem and not a solution. So one of the things that people tend to want to do here is to jump right away to how am I going to solve this problem? And they try to embed a solution into their how might we question. But what you really want to do is describe the goals and not the solution. We're still in that process of really falling in love with our problem and not yet marrying ourselves to one potential solution. So you need to be open to a lot of different potential ideas. So our how might we question is going to come from a point of view statement. And the point of view statement is that statement that we're going to write that captures our users' needs as well as their insight. So we want to be descriptive about sort of who our user is. We want to use verbs to describe what their need is, and then find some interesting insights that come out of that interview work that you've done in terms of those observations and interpretations and how that can lead us to potential solutions for the problem. So in this example here, we have Jose is a busy manager who wants to eat healthier, but doesn't want to feel like he's on a diet. So we've got good detail, we've got a great verb, and we have some interesting insight about how he's feeling that came from our interviews. Now we're going to take that point of view statement and we're going to flip it around into a how might we statement. And this is sort of turning our problem into an opportunity. So here are a couple how might we statements that are maybe not so great. They could use a little improvement. So there's a bit of a balance when writing a how might we statement between being specific enough to capture your users' needs and the insights from your interviews, but being broad enough to allow multiple possibilities. And if you read these two statements here, you'll see that they kind of fall on either end of that spectrum. So how might we create a food tracking app to encourage healthy eating? Versus how might we help people eat more healthy? And you'll see there that the first one is a little bit too solution-y or narrowly focused. So we've embedded a solution in our question, which doesn't allow us a lot of opportunity to find other potential solutions as well. And the second one is way too broad. How might we help people eat more healthy? It's not telling us anything about that user that we interviewed or what their specific need was. Now, these three questions, on the other hand, provide a nice balance between understanding our users' needs and providing lots of opportunity for ideation. So how might we make healthy eating more convenient? How might we make unhealthy eating less convenient? And how might we make the feeling of dieting desirable? So we sort of thought about how we can change something for the more positive or remove some of the negative feelings towards something, and sort of played around with different phrasings. And you can see how each of those statements might lead to potentially different solutions. And so because of that, because a different question can lead to a different solution, what we're going to have you do for your projects is actually write many different how might we statements. And that's what you're going to do for this first part of your homework is you're going to take your point of view statement and you're going to craft a number of different how might we statements. And then based on each of those statements, when we get to the academy, we're going to dig into some ideation around those statements until you find one that you really want to focus on. And so I'm going to walk you through a bit of a protocol now that we call a how might we mashup that will help you to craft those statements based on very specific prompts and ways of looking at your problem. So for the example that I'm going to walk you through, we're going to talk about redesigning the ground experience at a local international airport. And our point of view statement that we have here is quite detailed. It's a stressed mother of three rushing through the airport only to wait hours at the gate who needs to entertain her playful children because those annoying little brats only irritate already frustrated fellow passengers. I'm sure we've all been there. Maybe you were there on your way here coming through the airport. And so what we're going to do is choose some different ways of looking at this problem in order to craft different how might we statements. And these are the same prompts that you're going to use to write how might we statements for your problem. So the first one that we have is to remove the bad. So how might we separate the kids from the fellow passengers? How do you just take the good thing and change it to, take the bad thing, and change it to a potential good thing? So that's one way in order to look at this challenge, is to think about how do you remove a negative from this situation. Another way to look at this is to explore the opposite. So how might we make the wait the most exciting part of the trip? So if we've got an assumption here that the wait is going to be boring, how can we make that actually really interesting instead? Question and assumption. So in this case, we're assuming that you need to arrive at the airport 3 hours early. How can we question that? How might we entirely remove the wait time at the airport? This is an assumption I like to question every time I travel, by arriving at the airport exactly 1 hour before my flight. So thinking about what are some assumptions that you've made about your problem or potential solutions that could be related to that problem, and how can you challenge that? How can you question whether or not that needs to be that way? The next way to look at it is to go after adjectives. So in this case, we had adjectives about the rush being stressful. So how can we make that rush refreshing instead of stressful? And you can see how this could lead to potential solutions to your problem as well. Identify unexpected resources. So what are some potential things that we've overlooked that could help us to solve this problem? So in this case, how might we leverage the free time of fellow passengers in order to share the load? Play against the challenge. How might we make the airport a place that kids want to go to? So again, part of the challenge or the assumption that we've made here is that kids don't like the airport. How can we change that? What's a challenge that you can play against in your situation? Create an analogy from a need or a context. So analogies are great for launching into ideation because they allow us to think about things from a different perspective. So how might we make the airport more like a spa? Or how might we make the airport more like a playground? And you can see how these are sort of leading towards very specified solutions, but it's in a way that allows us to just expand our thinking around the problem. Challenge a status quo. So in this case, our status quo is that playful, loud kids are annoying. How can we make them less annoying? What's a status quo that you see in relation to your challenge, and how can you push against that status quo in some way? You can also break your point of view statement into pieces and create multiple how might we questions out of that one point of view statement. So in this case, how might we entertain the kids? How might we slow down a mom? How might we mollify delayed passengers? So we've taken one statement and we've actually sort of broken that problem down into multiple different pieces. Is there some way that you can sort of bite-size out your problem into different pieces as well? And then, of course, amp up the good. So a good thing about this situation is to use the kids' energy to entertain fellow passengers. So what is something that is a positive about your situation or about your user? When do they feel great? When do they feel positive and motivated and excited about things? How can you take that and somehow use it in order to create a solution for your problem? So what you're going to do is each of those prompts you will find in your shared deck with you'll each have your own slide with each of those prompts on it. And we're going to have you generate multiple different how might we statements. So one for each of those prompts, essentially. So in the end of this, you're going to have, I think, 9 different how might we statements, remembering to describe the goals and not the solutions. Because the fun part is when we get to the academy, we're going to take each of those statements and we're going to use it to launch into our ideation that will help you to narrow down and define what your solution is going to look like. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. You can find me at lesliebeth@gmail.com. Happy to help. I'll also be in your deck giving you comments and feedback throughout the process. So don't be afraid to tag me in comments if you have questions or you want specific feedback on something. I can't wait to meet you all at the Academy, and good luck as you craft your How Might We statements.